settings. There we go. Let's see who ends up popping on here. The good old Forging live stream brought to you by two Basterds, Texas Smithy and Supplies. Frank and Nita have been doing this for 6 years. They've been supplying hammers and cool tools for a lot of us makers for a long time. What's up? And then of course brought to you by Texas Farrier Supply. Guys, we're gonna forge today. It's gonna be just some fun, and just to make sure everything's connected. You can hear me, mic's connected, all that. We're gonna do some forging. We're gonna forge a knife, of course. What? A knife? How many knives have I forged? Oh, live streams slightly. I do plan on doing some state turners on one of these live streams. I gotta forge like a whole bunch of them, but today it's really, really hot. Nice, good, cool. We're 103 in the shop right now, so it's not incredibly hot. The forge is running. I have it on the outside of the shop right now, but we're already at 103 inside here. I do have some good ventilation going. We're pumping out some hot air. Not really that bad. And so first one, nice. Here early this time. That is awesome. Ground rock, and it's nice and toasty. Yep. Yeah. So it's supposed to get up to like 100 something. Probably a real feel of like 108 or 109 today. We'll see how that ends up going. Should have been out here at 3 a.m. I wouldn't be waking up my neighbors that early with all this ruckus, but I am nice and fed and hydrated and ready to do this thing. I did a whole bunch of yard work yesterday, and everything was good there. I think we're gonna have a good time today. We're not doing anything super duper crazy. We are forging a knife. I am using a thicker material. I'm going to be forging a chunk of 80 CRV2. This is a 1/4 of an inch thick steel. It's going to move like butter compared to some of the other stuff that I do. I did forge this. I primarily forged the blade section, a little bit on the handle, but this is going to be the challenge build. This thing is long right here. But this is of course going to have a knuckle duster and everything built in there, but good old fun. But can't show y'all too much of that. Now the cutoff, I had a couple of chunks that were cut off of this before I started forging, and I've got those pieces of steel that I'm going to end up forging into knives here and there. I don't know exactly what knife I'm gonna forge just yet. I'm just gonna start forging, and we're gonna see what it turns into. I don't know. I'm not really going into here with the game plan. I'm just gonna have fun and forge a cool knife. It's gonna be a full tang knife. It's gonna have the whole entire handle and everything is gonna be forged to profile. It's been pretty cool. Didn't know I had neighbors. Oh, I definitely got neighbors. Cold in Canada. I wish it was cold here. Is your name? Yeah, that happens. So, we're going to get after it. I've already got the steel in the forge heating up. So, that should only take just a little bit longer. We're going to be working on, this is a 112-pound Texas Farrier Supply anvil. This is the Jay Nielsen from Forged and Fire. This is the one that he co-designed. And we're going to be working on it instead of one of my other anvils. This is going to be fun. This is a little bit noisier, but it shouldn't be that bad with me having the mic up here. But this is definitely a pretty loud anvil if you don't have it tied down. If y'all don't know this, my anvil's not tied down. This is my anvil that I travel with, so I have to be able to take it off of here relatively easy. It just has these little cleats that keep it in place right here, and then this base is only like 35, 40 pounds. So compared to one of my other anvil stands that are like 130 pound anvil plus like a 45 pound stand, and then 170 anvil plus a 45 pound stand. And we're going to be rocking right off the rip with two Basterds rounding hammer. If you were ever going to get a hammer to start blacksmithing, rounding hammer to start with, and then a cross peen, straight peen. And if you're wondering what those look like, this. Straight peen, cross peen. If you wanted to get into blacksmithing, that's the two hammers you want to scoop up. I'm going to be doing videos on those later. I've hit a small speed bump. Able to work for a while. You're fixing up the truck. I know, but you're doing, I think you're going to have fun messing with that, your truck. What you're forging today? A knife. We're following from the sky. Launch on the head? No, especially not an Acme one. What's up, Coulter? How you doing? We're just waiting on this chunk of steel to heat up. So basically, I had a little offcut. This is the other part of it. So it was 3 inches tall, and then this angle came all the way down to here. So I'm actually working with this bottom section of this chunk of steel. It is 1/4 of an inch thick. This is one of the offcuts of my challenge build. And if y'all don't remember what the challenge build's gonna look like, the one that I'm doing for the Knife Makers Challenge is gonna look like this. It's got this cool looking kind of D-guard knuckle duster set up right there. That's what I'm making for the military challenge. Come on, heat up. I do have the 2-burner forge running. I've got a blocker plate blocking off the back burner, so I'm only using 1 burner right now. It's really not too bad in here. I know 103 sounds like it's really hot, but it's not that bad. We are primarily going to be using these 2 hammers. The rounding hammer and the cross peen, straight peen is pretty much the main hammers we're going to use for this whole entire build. We don't really need to do anything super crazy for a knife profile. I'm gonna swap the grizzly grinder to 3 horsepower. That's gonna be pretty cool. I'm gonna be ripping with that thing. Wednesday, just trying to get back in the workshop. It's nice being out in here. Like I said, I did a whole bunch of yard work yesterday. I cleared off an entire dumpster worth of brush and bushes and small trees and stuff like that. So like a full dumpster like what you see in the alley. Did all of that. Got myself a nice bit of sun there. But you know how it goes. You gotta put in work every once in a while. Okay, we'll start forging here in just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and get this piece of steel out of here. So the goal for this, just like we've done on other knife builds in the past, when you start forging, we gotta get all the material shoved to where it needs to go. So we're gonna start by forging down that point, and then we're gonna work our way back, get our little notch for what's gonna be the handle separation. So between the heel and the tang. This is not going to have that little coffin handle that I've been putting on some of these knives. This is going to have my full handle profile with like a little bird's beak that comes down around past your pinky, all of that. So it's going to be a cool looking profile. glanced off the side there. The nice thing about this anvil is it doesn't have to, like, let's see, I put a little dent right there, but it's barely noticeable. As I'm forging, it'll almost auto-correct that dent. But let's say I just left that little dent right there and I kept forging on top of that. What's going to happen is you're going to get like a relief stamp on the side that's actually touching the anvil. Each time you hit on top of it, you're going to have a relief of that dent in there the whole entire time. Now, if I wanted to get that out, and minimize it, just slightly forge just right around it, and we'll minimize that. Let's use the turning hammer. Now there's going to be people that are popping in that are going, what the heck is that guy doing? There we go. Now, if you've ever taken a really sharp hammer, and this is the reason why I don't use, show y'all. So like a lot of hammers that have these really square faces like this, you could screw up an anvil with that if you're not paying attention. And you come in and you hit this at an angle. So you hit it at an angle like this, you will put a huge sharp dent. Whenever I'm forging with this hammer, a lot of it is just beating the heck out of the steel straight face to face, not working bevels and all of that stuff. I use hammers that have more rounded faces to do bevels and stuff like that. Because if you're going to come in and start hitting it at a sharp angle, you need to be careful with that. Let's see here. But you'll see a lot of older anvils, their faces are just absolutely decimated. We're just working that point down. Remember, this steel is 1/4 of an inch thick, so that steel that I used to forge the last chef, I'm going to give y'all an idea. So this piece of steel I forged so one of my small chefs, this piece of steel is what this started off as, the same shape and everything. Look at the difference. This is what we're using this time. So whenever I was forging that chef, this is how thin 3/32 actually is. So it is so much easier to forge this 1/4 of an inch. It takes more work, like beating on it, stuff like that. But this was not easy to forge. I like the Pro Cut actually a lot. So because this is so thin, every time you hit on it, it wants to buckle and taco. This stuff, phew, I can absolutely beat the heck out of it and not have to worry about it buckling. That is one of the upsides to working with the thicker steels. Now you got to hit it harder, but you can hit it harder. That's what's nice. So we brought that down. So now we have that nice subtle swoop down to the point. What's up, Steve? Yeah, I think you'll like the Pro Cut a lot, actually. So right now, we know we got our preform to our tip, pretty much where we need it to be. I know that I'm going to be doing a distal taper on this tang most likely. So whenever I come in and try and figure out how much handle material I need, I don't want to go too crazy with it. So I'll make it to where we're about, but I also don't want the blade to have too much blade. So I'm going to give myself about that much. Alright. So this whole section right here is going to be our handle. This whole section is going to be our blade. Because it's so thick, this has the possibility of becoming a rather large knife. I don't want it to be a large knife. I want it to stay pretty thick at the ricasso. So I'm going to let it, I'm going to thin it out just a little bit, but I'm going to primarily just focus on the profile and having a little bit of height to the blade, a little bit of length. Thank you, Robert. This is the Texas Farrier Supply and J. Nielsen collaboration anvil. 112 pounds. Absolute epic anvil. Oh yeah, and the don't pass out thing. Yep. I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that. What's up, Bernard? I've got plenty of water. I've got plenty of stuff to help keep myself nice and hydrated. Plus, I've got, I made sure and ate before I came out here, and I think I'm going to do just fine. I've got this drink that has a nice bit of potassium, sodium, stuff like that I'm going to drink periodically. It's staying cool in the fridge. It's in the other shop. So, again, just like what I was talking about there, you don't want to pass out. I did that a couple of live streams ago. At the end of it, collapsed. It was not fun. Luckily, it was inside and not on camera. So, we're going to let this section that's going to be the tang heat up a little bit. We're going to start forging that down. The goal for this is to create a notch for where the heel of the knife goes up into that finger choil area. I wonder if I actually have these little profile. There we go. So whenever I'm teaching classes or doing demos, this is the order of operations. We did this. We created that tip preform. Then we put our little notch for where the handle is going to be. The next step is this phase right here where we create this notch. This is going to be your heel. This is going to be your finger choil. And then we go to something like that. Right there. And then we go to something like this right here. Those are the steps. Now, of course, we're not doing this exact profile. So that was just giving y'all an idea of the process. Of course, a lot of y'all probably already seen that. If you haven't, I can always show y'all again in a little bit. cool air. Let's say, cool down slow. Oh yeah, for sure. Dragon with the super soaker. That'd actually be pretty funny. Just them coming out here and just blast me with that. Of course, I do have the pool, so if I'm gonna have to cool down, I'll just take a dip in the pool. But it should be almost hot enough for this. So again, this step, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hang the blade off the handle, or we're gonna hang the blade off the edge and push in the handle. So it's gonna be like this right here. If this is the anvil, we're gonna be forcing it just like this so that this heel works its way down past the side of the anvil. We don't want to compress this section right here hardly at all because we want that height out of there. So we're going to be pushing this in. That way we don't have to sit there and try and draw out a heel. The heel will already be drawn out for the most part. All we got to do is forge bevels from there. And I know I've forged a lot of knives, but I'm just wanting to have fun out here. I don't want it to be too crazy. I just want to be able to forge a little bit and chill and talk with y'all. There we go. Once you get that notch kind of going, on the next heats, you'll be able to really blast it. We just want to create that notch and really start working into that. You don't need to be going too crazy on that first little bit of forging. It's not necessary. I'm going to switch to the 2 Basterds dog head just because it has a little bit of a broader face to it. And that's going to let me really get in here and blast away at it. If you don't know what a dog head hammer is, it just means that the head is shifted off to the side. You see a lot of people in Japan use those. Kind of forge am I using? Yeah, a propane forge, and it is a forge that I make. And I have never bought a forge. The closest thing to that is this forge over here, and I'm just waiting on a few parts for that. But this, let's see if I can actually get y'all over there. That forge. That's my ribbon burner forge from Texas Forges. So, as soon as I get the rest of the stuff for that, I'll be using it in the shop. Get y'all back over here. But yeah, that's the ribbon burner forge. I just got to get a few things like the blower, make sure I have everything how I want it, because I want an automatic shut off, needle valves, different things like that. It's not like you can just hook up a propane line and a simple valve and a fan, because what happens if the fan goes out and you're just pumping propane into that chamber and all that and you end up blowing stuff up? You just got to be careful. So there's things like that that I want to get before I start really using that. Yes, you can absolutely weld with, heck, you can forge weld with the forge that I use, my forges that I make. They get well into the 2000s, 2200, 2400 degrees. Turn this so that y'all can actually see what I'm doing here. Make sure you're forging it back down flat. You don't need to planish or anything like that, but because you're really compressing here, you're going to create an I-beam where the edge, they're touching the hammer and the anvil, flare out and get wider, and that can fold over onto the side if you're not careful. Give yourself a cold shut that whenever you grind it off, it puts a big dent in your steel. This is what I wanted to show y'all. So for the people that don't really follow me on other things, this is what the integral full tang knife that I forged whenever I was passed out and all that. This is the one we, finished forging last weekend. It was a lot of fun doing this right here with files and the 2x72. I don't have a waterfall platen, so I just had to, pay attention to what I was doing there. And then we're keeping all of the forged area going up into the bolster. I think this is going to look really cool because the handle material that I'm using is this nice green burlap micarta. That's what's going to be on here. I see people do these and they'll use woods and stuff like that, but I think that black pins with this burlap micarta, and then I'm going to take this, and whenever I quench it, because I'll leave the handle scales proud of the everything, I'm going to try and get all of this nice and finished real nice, and then whenever I heat it up and quench it and it bakes that oil into it, I'm going to leave that finish all the way around so that the bolster and all that's dark from the actual quenching. But yeah, that right there is going to be the micarta that's going to go on this blade here. Remember, that was forged from a coil spring, one of these little Audi coil springs. Oh, and mule. I got that order in, so that's the handle material that's going on your knife. It looks a little bit different whenever I finish it. It gets that more kind of mustardy yellow color. But I got that order in. So, because we're going to end up doing a distal taper, full tang and all that, we need this section to be brought down quite a bit more than if you're just taking a 3/32, well, not 3/32, but if you're working with 3/16 inch material, like a normal knife steel, and you're not going to do a distal taper, you can just forge it down to the profile, call it good. But because I'm going to be taking this 1/4 inch and dropping it down a little bit in thickness, it's going to take So if you're just leaving it the thickness that it is, it's fine. But because I'm going to be pinching here to thin this out, to thin the width out, I need to make this a little bit more narrow so that whenever I pinch here, what's going to happen is it's going to bring this section back out a little bit. Because when you pinch it, it still's got to go somewhere. It's not just going to go to length. A little of that's going to go to height. So we got to bring it down just a little bit more so that whenever we crunch it down and it flares out, it's going to go ahead and be okay. Getting some orange burlap. Yeah, orange burlap's really cool too. These things, I've got a few of these. These are like fire hose, burlap, with liners and whatnot. Those are going to be really cool on the knives that those are going on. Flatten just a little bit, come in from the other side, give ourselves a little notch for our little bird's beak. So that is the little starting preform for the back side of the handle. So now we're going to pinch this back section down just like we did this section here, and that's going to give us the preform for our handle. Now you got to remember, I'm just doing the preform right now, so I'm going to compress the material, but because I know that I'm going to be stretching it out, I'm not trying to do that phase right now. Right now, it's just get the material roughly to where it needs to go preform wise, and then we're going to take and stretch it out almost like if you took a small little round of dough, you roll and pin that thing out to thin it. You're going to get all of that size out of something so small. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll and pin this steel out with the hammer. You know what I mean? So it's going to be all about getting it to the preform, and then we're going to stretch the material, get some distals forged in, thin out that ricasso just a little bit. I don't want to go too thin. This is going to be a little chunky boy. It's not going to be a paper thin knife. It's not going to be one of these little chefs or anything like that. I'm going to have fun with this one. And I've got a ton of thinner knives that I'm working on right now, which is one of the reasons why I got to stop forging freaking knives. So I've got a ton of different EDCs that are on the thinner side. This one's going to be really cool whenever I finish it. This is also out of Pro Cut. I did a little EDC style, almost like you can use it as a chef if you want to. But I've got so many knives already forged right now in the phase of getting drilled and getting ready for grinding, heat treating, and all that stuff. Couple taps flat, go back in. A little bitty old handle. Just a little bitty old handle. It is definitely too small right now. A little more planish. All right. Right now it's a knife for ants. It's gonna be up pretty soon. Just gotta do final picks and stuff. Heck yeah, man, that's gonna be awesome. Another drink. See, what I'm happy about is that I got all the air circulating how it's supposed to. I got my vent fan pumping out that heat from the top there. And the fan over here pumping air this way. Fans here pumping air that way. The forge is not blowing a lot of heat into the shop. We're at 107 degrees, which is pretty nice. It's not that hot. We're doing pretty good. I'm excited for it. Hopefully it'll boost your business. Having a website will absolutely boost your business because it works even when you're not working. So whenever you have a website up, it's doing work whether you are physically doing something or not. And speaking of physically doing something or not, I've got some new profiles that I'm going to be adding to the website for the downloadable PDFs. So for people who have already got the other profiles, I've got some new knife designs that I'm working on that I'm going to have go on the website here soon. It's going to be the 2.0 version of the other one. So this is not going to be the same knives that I already had on there. They're new knives, but they're in that same lane. It's a chopper, it's a larger chef, kind of like a petty, and then an EDC that are going to be going up there. The cool thing about those profiles is you can download them once you purchase them, download them as many times as you want, or print them as many times as you want. It's got the pin placement on there, where to start grinding your bevels, all that stuff. So for people who are kind of artistically challenged, it makes their life a little bit easier. So now that we have that profile preformed, we need to go through and stretch it out. We're going to use our straight peen. We're focusing on length. So you'll see I'm putting dents, but they're only going one direction, down. Okay, so we're going to distal taper it primarily with this straight peen. And what my goal is to be about right here on this anvil. So kind of about right where, going right past the pritcher hole. So I know if I can get to right there, it'll be wide enough on the bottom part of the tang to wrap around my hand. Yes, so how do I make it? I go on to knifeprint.com and I figure out the scaling that we need, and then so I've designed the profile, I print it off. I take that profile and I figure out, is it going to actually work in your hand? A lot of times I'll take it, I'll put it on wood template material and then go, okay, no, I need to adjust the finger choil a little bit, adjust the heel of the knife a little bit, get a little bit more height here and there. But these are profiles that I've actually forged, so it's pretty nice because I can actually play with it a little bit. But I use knifeprint.com as the website to to, I guess, put them into PDF format. What's up? No, it's 108 in here, but it's not like I got plenty of air circulation other than the fan. Huh? Yep. But I got plenty of air circulation. That fan's doing its job. The crazy thing is, oh yeah. And on top of that, we got the air circulation. And I mean, this is the same temp as it was the day that I passed out outside. Huh? So yeah, so we're doing okay. If you water my shop, you don't need to water the shop. That was Miss Rivers, if you're wondering. Miss the Rivers experience. So I will tell you this, the phase that I'm doing right now, you would typically do this with a rounding hammer. You wouldn't do this with a straight peen or a cross peen. It's a little bit more risky to do it this way because you're putting really narrow dents into this and you can accidentally go too far and screw yourself up and end up with a sharp dent in an area that you kind of have to fix. Using a rounding hammer, it doesn't have those really sharp edges, so you could take and compress it down. For me, I know with my preform that I'm going to give myself a tiny handle that I want to stretch out just lengthwise. I'm not trying to get 360 degree stretch. I'm just trying to get 180 degree. Well, not even 180 degree. I'm trying to go two directions instead of all the way around. AMR, I'm going to enter my lives local art show. Oh, I should probably do that. Lots of R&D. There is a lot of R&D when it comes to the profiles that I put on the website for y'all. The R&D for me, I know what profiles I like and how I use them in my hands, and I've got plenty of different ones. So I know in my brain, whenever I'm forging something, what's going to work within scaling. But whenever you put that into a program, I need it to be able to be printed off easily for people and know that they can take that profile and run with it. Plus, it also gives them profiles that they can modify from. So whenever I first started making knives, I just took the previous knife, put it on the steel, drew it out, and then I changed up the blade a little bit because I knew the handle would work. So I changed up the blade profile, but I'd leave the handle. And then on the next one, I might really like the blade profile, so I'd leave the blade profile, slightly change the handle. But having those profiles to put down to be able to modify them and change them around, it's really nice. Because if you're not very good at figuring out scaling or the size of a hand or where ergonomics should be utilized, like on the shapes of the handles and stuff like that, if you're not good at figuring that out, these give you a base to start with. You know, the only thing that I had whenever I first started was I was a knife collector for like 20 years, so I had a lot of knives to kind of base my designs off of. Something to remember here, whenever you're doing this phase, you got to remember that right now what we're doing is we're forging in a taper, but don't go to the final length just in the taper. We still have to refine the profile. And whenever we pinch and adjust here, we're going to get length out of that process too. Okay? We're still kind of just in that preform phase, so we just want to get the material moved. So we're getting length, and then we're going to modify that profile to where I really like it, and then we'll clean it up, and we should have plenty of length for us to hold that in our hand. What's the temp like there? 94 north. So outside of the shop, it's about 100, 103. It's gonna get up to, I think, like what? Yeah, so she said it's probably sitting at about 100 right now, but it's supposed to get up to 104. And that's not the real feel. That's not the heat index. That's 104 degrees. Heat index, it could be 109, 110. But in the shop, it's 108. But it still feels good because I have, again, fans getting the air circulating and one fan pumping out as much of the heat out of the top of the shop as possible. JD wants his nips back. You better believe it. What's funny is having it like this, and it's like really hot outside, so you can imagine what it's like whenever I'm cold. Just like no glass is safe around me. Go ahead and flatten it out a little bit. Planish it. You can see we have our distal taper roughed in there. So Ricasso's down here, tapers out back. Now, of course, we need to go through and adjust that profile just a little bit. We don't want to go too crazy with the profile because we're going to end up doing that after we get the blade where it needs to go.
Forecasting down a little bit. It's supposed to get up to 102 today. We're in the middle of our heat advisory, which is from 12 yeah. The current temperature is 98 degrees with a heat index or real feel of 104.
Thank you, Duck.
And then we have a real cool, like we're going to have a cool streak on Tuesday with the possibility of rain at 91.
In the 90s. Start wearing my jacket.
Overnight low of 71. Current humidity is only 34%. It's come down so much in the last couple of days because it was like 60.
I know. People talk about that. It's a dry heat. It's a humid heat.
It's still humid.
It's still humid. Let's do the water for a little bit here.
Are you guys excited to get those?
Yeah. And one of my kids is at church camp right now. Nisha's got to go pick them up. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to work on the profile of the tang a little bit. Like I said, we're not going to go too crazy just because a lot's going to happen to this tang as we start forging out the blade section. But we do want to go through and just kind of refine the profile just a little bit. I'm going to take and pinch this back section just a little bit, but I wanted to clean up the intersection here. You need to be careful whenever you're forging on the inside of the handle so that you don't accidentally hit your heel of your blade or the kind of bird's beak on that, what you would call maybe the pommel, the butt of the handle. Just want to be careful whenever you're forging on the inside of that, really focusing on your hammer control as you come in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to hang this off the edge of the anvil like I just did, and we're going to take and push. We're just going to, basically what's going to happen is this. If this is the side of the anvil, we're going to take and push this section right here in so that it moves this back. Because right now we have a big flare right here. We want this kind of like hook around your finger. We don't want that big flare. Now, of course, I could just leave it how it is and grind it later, but we're already here, so why not forge it? One of the things that you could do on this is, so like I use, I'll move this anvil over real quick. So just because I don't have this anvil right here, or that anvil, the Texas Farrier supply anvil set up really for this, I have all these different rounds right here that are actually full rounds. The one thing that I need to modify on this anvil is it's rounded here, but it's still pretty sharp on the transition from the flat to the round. I need to take a flap disc and take this edge right here off both these sides so that it is an actual round into it. This anvil, I've already done that, so it makes it a lot easier to do what I'm about to do and have a clean profile when it's all said and done. And I always tell people to modify their anvils to fit what you need. So we're going to take them in here. Pinch that. So you can see we start compressing this section and we get a nice round here already. And then I'll start rounding the back section as we go and we start adjusting everything. There we go. Get you back in there. And there's no harm in going through and just grinding that section later. Quarter, like forge into that corner at an angle. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm just pinching that section, and then I'm going to take it and go onto the horn of one of these anvils, and I'm going to adjust it a little bit. And then whenever I put this like whenever I put this little dip that goes kind of right into here and I pinch that, it will actually mushroom this a little bit. So that'll work into my favor too. Now you don't typically have to do this much. If you're forging even close to where I'm at right now, you are doing more forging to finish than a lot of people out there that are making knives. It's not necessary to do what I'm doing right now, but if you want to up your skill and your hammer control, this is the stuff that you need to learn. you know, that way if you ever need to do it, you can, but it's not necessary. We're just getting narrower and narrower as we do that. I'm going to do that one more time, and then you'll see how I take and I modify that to look nice. But again, this is not, whenever I'm showing you all a lot of this, it's not saying that if you don't do it this way, you're not a good knife maker. It's not necessary for you to do some of this stuff, but for me, I like to, you know, refine my skill every single time I do something. And it's like, if I can do this, I might as well do it. On my challenge build, the military challenge build for the YouTube Knife Makers Challenge, there's more stock removal on that than what y'all are used to seeing me do, just because a lot of the material has to be super, not perfectly clean, but it needs to be real nice and parallel, no bends or anything like that, because it's going to have layers of other things that go onto it, and things need to line up, things need to not have gaps. So there's more stock removal to that. Now I did forge the blade to profile, but the handle area is going to be stock removal for the most part. Now, I'll probably end up removing a little bit of this bird's beak in the stock removal phase, just because I don't need like a the beak to come down. I don't need this section to come down to like here. So I'll just remove a little bit of that at that phase, but I'm still gonna forge it the rest of the way. I need to do a video on proper anvil mounting. The most important thing to do if your anvil is forge knives on it, sell them. That is true. So when it comes to anvil mounting, my anvil will never be mounted to the floor. It will always be mobile until I get a shop big enough to where I have a section that's just meant for anvils. Then maybe I'll attach that to the ground. But like this anvil, that ain't going nowhere. That's siliconed. The anvil is siliconed to the base, and then it's also strapped, as opposed to this one. This is unnecessary to have any of that, because it has to go to shows and be mobile and all that. This one stays in the shop. The bad boy has like no ring to it. That silicone really helps for that. Forge this little section down into here. This is the little bit of preform to that. So now you can see we've got a nice round going into there. What I'm doing is I'm forging on it, but instead of forging down into the anvil like this, I've got this hanging off the edge of the anvil, so that as I'm forging down into here, it's pushing this back section in, and that's pushing this area out that way. So it's going to give me a nice round into that, the heel or the butt of that, the pommel, whatever you want to call it. So it's letting me choose the direction that the steel is going to go, so that all I got to do is pinch and move that back, so I get that nice round and I get the extension. Because sometimes what happens is you only get this little bit of round and it's really flat, as opposed to getting a nice heel that comes out. I keep calling it a heel, but it's not a heel. Show you on one of these knives. I know I got about 30 profiles over here. Here we go. Show you on this one. So, like this right here, where it hooks down, but then it flares back. Like that. A lot of people like that profile, instead of having it almost straight up and down like that. So that leads to a really cool profile when it's all said and done. So again, we're just hanging off the edge and forging that down in. So what I'm going to end up doing on the next phase, in order to keep this piece from pushing too far in this way, on the next one, we're going to hang it upside down how we were doing, our right side up, and we're going to be forging with the anvil back up into this little notch right here, and we're going to be forging this area down, and it's going to scoot that bad boy straight out there. You know, it says it's 109 in here, but it really doesn't feel bad. I'll tell you, that week where it got up to like over 120 in here and I passed out and all that, that was rough. I think it was like 125 in here. And a lot of that's because the air was just, all the hotness was just stuck in here. I've been known to do that to a room. All right, hang it off the edge. And I'm gonna end up forging this section back down in, but you see how we got more length in this area now? So now when we push this area back down in, we'll end up getting even more length out of this, and we'll get that nice profile back there. The cool thing is what you can do with just hammer and anvil to get your proportions and everything where you want it. I love doing this when it comes to forging. I love having fun, kind of just messing with different parts of the anvil and seeing where you need to put your hammer strikes to just extend the sections of steel that you want to extend, and understanding that people 150, 200 years ago did so much work smithing like this that they could make every part of the reins for horses, tools and equipment to be able to make their processes and everything easier. It's just the cool things that you can do with forging. It's mind-boggling. You know, everything that I use in here is forged. All my tongs, the hammers, it's just crazy what you can do. So what I did there was I was putting this at an angle like this right here. So the whole entire, it wasn't like I was laying it down flat. I was putting it at an angle like this, and I was forging in at an angle here. And what that does is that stretches, it pushes the steel. It moves this bottom section, it shoves that out. It only gives it one way to go. So it starts pushing that out and putting the dent in here. And then whenever I go and I flatten this out, it's going to take that and move it out even more. And then I'm going to have this really cool profile where we work almost built like a square a minute ago. This is where, if you want to learn how to forge to finish, just playing with it and getting this stuff going. Braided leather, usually, yeah. But the hardware for the rings and all of that. Yeah, the bits. Yep. I've got a friend up here, and I think it's Kyle Stanley. One of those. Can't remember his last name. It's either Staley or Stanley. I think it's Staley. But he does stainless steel. He does a lot of forging with stainless steel. And he just works in his 2-car garage. And he stays... my griddle that I cook on, my Blackstone, I actually got from him. I traded a knife for him. He's going to be coming in and taking some classes for smithing knives. But he makes some of the cleanest buckles and all the bits and all that stuff out of stainless. It's super cool. Bits and bobs and doodads. Yeah, I don't know all of that. I don't ride horses. I don't, I am not a farmer. You know, I've got family members that have horses and whatnot, but that ain't me, my guy. And voila! And again, remember, this is just still kind of preform. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to planish it just a little bit, so we need to heat it up just a little bit. I'm going to planish it, and we're going to end up working on the blade. This will still... The handle will still get elongated just a little bit, but it'll only be about maybe 3/8 of an inch, and that'll be after we get that blade to about 75-80%. And believe it or not, we've only preformed blade. We haven't even started forging distals or bevels or any of that yet. What I love about that is that person had just that just posted that, show us your slong. It's like, show us your slong and stuff. What? Like, and stuff? No, you're not seeing all that. It's not that type of podcast, even though I don't think you could do that on podcasts anyways, no matter what type it is. Where would I get good hammers at? So, these people right here, are two Basterds, Texas Smithy and Supply. You can go on Facebook, it's two Basterds, you can type that in, or F/N Metalworks. But if you just look up two Basterds, Smithy, two Basterds hammers, it'll pull it up for you. It's Frank and Nita, they've been doing this for over 6 years. They make all my hammers that I use for these live streams. Everything from my dog head hammer all the way to things like rounding hammers, straight pins, cross pins, all kinds of different hammers that I have. And the cool thing about them is you call them and you talk to Frank and Nita, the people who actually make the hammers. You don't talk to some girl named Alyssa who is like a receptionist who writes something down on a piece of paper and then you hope that that piece of paper gets to the maker for them to start making it. No, you talk to the person who's going to make the things, and then they take all the notes, give you suggestions. You talk about fit, finish, you talk about all kinds of stuff, and then you get the right hammer you need with the right handle and all that stuff. It's a lot different than just ordering something off of a website hoping that it's going to fit right or be the right weight. Frank can actually suggest what would make more sense for you. And the cool thing is, if you have hammers that you really, really love, they can actually go through and rehandle them for you, clean things up, do all of that fun stuff. A couple of the hammers that I have are restoration hammers. So hammers that have been around for 80 plus years. But they breathed new life into it and made it awesome. So even if you stopped right there with your handle profile, you would have an epic handle profile. For me, I know that the dimensions are off a little bit. Where this swell is, there needs to be another swell back here. Right now it's up here, it needs to be down here. So that'll get adjusted whenever I do the final profile. You can see how clean that's forged right now though. There's not a ton of big hammer dits that come in this way, all the way around it. The edges look pretty crisp as you go down, where you see the transition from the top to the front. We still have our distal taper forged in there where it tapers from here to narrow. So now what we want to do, we want to grab it from the tang side or the handle. We want to go ahead and put the blade side, which is just the preform. We want to put that into the forge and start forging that out. One of the hard parts about doing distal tapers is you're responsible for centering everything. So whenever you forge a knife that's going to be, it's going to have an even flatness. So going from almost everything that I have in this side of the shop is distal tapered, but we'll show you off of this. So for the most part, if this whole entire section right here is going to be the same width or the same thickness, so from here all the way up to the ricasso, which is just section right here, and then up into the spine of the knife, that's going to be all flat. All you got to do is just make it flat. But whenever you deal with distal tapers, and I'll show you one that has a more aggressive distal on it. Let's see here. So when you're responsible we're doing something like this right here, where the taper, this is the thickest spot where the ricasso is, and then it tapers down to the end, and then it tapers all the way to the tip. You have to make sure that this tip and this tip are centered. So basically when you lay this down, it's the same height from the table up to this that it is up to this, both ways. Now of course this one's one of my forged to finished knives, so everything has to be centered. The cutting edge, the tip, the tang, all of that. That's only hammer and anvil. The grinder has not touched that at all. So that whole entire knife, handle, the thickness, the tapers, the spine, the actual profile to fit your hand, all of that was just hammer and anvil, no grinding. You can see how thin that edge is. That's how close you can get to a forged to finish project if you wanted to. It's dehydrated, you better believe it. How do you get the pinholes properly aligned on the taper tang? So normally drill them. Yeah, so what I typically do is I just drill the holes. You don't really have to worry too much about them. So like I always take and bevel my holes that are on here. So the holes are beveled. All you got to do to make it easy on you is just drill the hole straight through and then just bevel both sides to where the part that is actually touching the pin is only like a 1/16 of an inch thick. That's all you really need, and the epoxy will fill in those bevels that are in there. So just chamfer them, call it good. It's the easiest way to do it. Just drill straight through and call it good. And I tend to not use real thick pins on taper tangs. I use 1/8 inch thick pins. It's like the perfect size for a taper tang. And I use micarta or G10 pins for most of my taper tangs. Okay, so because we want to get a nice distal and a little bit of length, we need to be using the straight peen hammer and going down the blade. Not worried about any type of height right now. I just want to get my blade distaled out just a little bit. So we're just forging in those straight lines down the blade. We're not going to have a super long blade, but I want to focus on distaling it out just a little bit. And then what we'll do is we're primarily going to be focusing on the front of that blade as we start distaling it down, and then we'll get just a little bit of height out of the heel. But we're not looking for a crazy chef's knife out of this. We just want almost like a camp knife or a hunter. It wouldn't work because the scales are aligned. Okay, so there's a few things that you can do. So if you have a tang that goes from 1/4 of an inch down to like a 1/16, at that point you got to do some fun stuff with getting the pins to line up. But if you're going from 3/16 down to a 1/16, you got to remember the difference is only a 1/16 of an inch on both sides. So that's barely anything. And all you got to do is just drill straight through your tang, and then whenever you're drilling your handle scales, you just line up put the tang right on top of the two handle scales, so you know where to drill the holes. Just drill straight through. If you're using an 1/8 inch pin material and you've only got a 1/16 of an inch difference from either side, you'll be able to push those things straight together. You won't have to worry about trying to do some fancy crap. If you're going from a 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch down to a 1/16, that's a huge amount. At that point, then you got to start thinking through, just as if you were going to drill your holes and whatnot through this. So like whenever I do this, because I can't just sit that on top of there, I've got to get my handle, I've got to get my material, and I've got to actually make it match this perfectly on both sides before I can actually drill the holes. So I've got to make these just fit onto here perfectly, and then I drill the holes. It's the same thing with the aggressively tapered tang. You got to go through, and you might have to remove some material on the side that touches the tang, so that whenever you put these on top of each other, these are square. So you might have to remove some material from the center on there so that everything's square after the end. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. Hard way is to try and figure out jigs and all that crap. That's going to be the harder way to do it. I've done that too with like bone. You know, because I have knives that I've done that have that 3/8 of an inch down to an 1/8 of an inch. I just took that, brought our heel down just a little bit, got our length drawn out. Now I'm going to go through and clean that up. What's up, Frank? Again, that's the person you want to talk to for the hammers, the person that commented a minute ago. That's the person that actually makes the hammers. When I was talking about the F&N Metalworks, Frank and Nita, that's the Frank out of that pair. Couple amazing people right there. So now that we did a little bit of distal work on the blade, drove out that height just a little bit, I'm going to switch and go down to the dog head, 2 Basterds dog head, and I'm going to go ahead and just flatten those big dents that I just put out in there out just a little bit, and then correct that profile just a hair. Frank, what's the weather like down there where you're at? Is it hotter than it is here? It's 110 in the shop right now. Whole whopping 110. Made sure and ate before I came out here and started working. Made sure that it's nice and hydrated. You know, not drinking a whole bunch of sodas before you come out and do this. Make sure you got some water in your system, all of that. Sodium, potassium. Where we're at so far. That is not, of course, the end profile on this or anything like that. We're still in that preform kind of phase, a little bit of just adjustments. This is going to be like a drop point. Maybe I might end up adjusting that just a little bit. So I got an idea from something that's happening to the blade right now. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm gonna switch to my slightly smaller 2 Basterds cross peen. So it's just slightly narrower face on that. And I'm gonna use it to work on the height and things like that and fine tune stuff. This, of course, has the flat side on the other side. So we're going to use it on this blade and do some adjusting. Let that warm back up. $106. You must be wearing a sweater or something. It just hit 111. $111. Just in case you thought I was kidding. And that's not even the hot spot of the shop. So 111 is below where my exhaust fan is. And I've got air blowing this way, air blowing this way. I'm betting if I had it like over here somewhere, it'd probably be 113, 114. What's up, Mom? How you doing? I'm just out here sweating my butt off. I just went through, forged all the way down the blade, focusing on height as I'm forging in those bevels, just to adjust it into a certain area. And then I got a little area that I'm going to be pinching and drawing out just a little bit. I'm leaving the meat of the spine in that section, because instead of forging it with the straight peen and moving that material out, I'm going to pinch it out just a little bit, and I'm going to get a little bit of height. I'll give myself kind of like a harpoon spine to this. And it's just because of the way that the blade already started working, this is one of the reasons why I like kind of doing like a free form version of this, where I'm not going into it with a set expectation, because the process of me forging it gave me the idea to do this profile that I'm going to do. I love that. That's probably one of my favorite parts about doing a lot of these. You know, let the steel kind of make you decide, oh, that would look cool if I did this. Like 80 there must be nice. 68. Jeez. Scotia Canadian province just banned hiking, camping, and fishing with a $25,000 fine. Dude, Canada is cooked. I swear, like a normal Canada decision is like a crash out in America. Like, they're just like, you know what we're gonna do today? We want to limit everybody's handgun capacity to 6 rounds. So you can't use a fire, you can't have a handgun anymore if it's got more than 6 rounds. Sorry, all you people that own Glocks or whatever, you can't have those anymore. That's what we're doing. And that's like a dang Tuesday, you know what I mean? That's like not even a crazy thing. They're just like, yeah, we just decided this is what's gonna happen. Y'all deal with it. But they got that free health care. Okay, just so you know what I'm talking about, this little bump that's right here, I typically forge that out. And I was looking at it and I was like, man, if I can pinch that out a little bit. What'll end up happening is that'll get ground in and cleaned up a little bit. So it's just a little bit of a bump up right here. So your thumb sits in this little area here, and then it drops down. That's pretty dang cool. That's gonna work out nice and fine. So on this next heat, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this hammer still, the cross peen with the flat on the other side. So the whole point behind what I'm about to do is I'm gonna use this hammer and I'm gonna go through and I'm going to pull down. My goal here is to really modify what the edge is doing, the cutting edge. So I'm going to get a little bit of extension lengthwise, so from heel to tip. I'm going to get a little bit of height. What that's going to do is it's going to give me a little upsweep to the tip. Handguns are banned now. See, crap like that, man. Absolutely wild. As are a ton of hunting rifles, shotguns, as well as... That's just nuts. Just, yes, no Texas. I love that. Got that snow Texas. That's hilarious. You know, sometimes it's nice having the smaller group watching this. Sometimes whenever I have like, you know, like 250 or 300 like concurrent viewers, people watching at the same time, you know, I have to like think through everything everything that I'm saying, or, you know, trying to play up to the crowd a little bit. Whenever I have the smaller groups and I just get to forge and have fun, it's fun doing that. Plus, a lot of y'all are the people that actually care about what I'm talking about right now and doing. So, we're going to be forging down the edge. And then I'm going to turn. And I'm going to expand the edge. So I started by forging the lines this way, and then, so basically like this, and then I switched to that way. Just see now, we got that up sweep to the tip. We were able to expand the cutting edge, so we pulled it down and expanded. What's up, Arlen? Let me see it. I don't know if that has batteries already, or if you've got to put batteries in it. So whenever your mom gets back here, we'll have her put some double A's in that thing. And then you can use it. Huh? No, you don't need to take it off right now. It's just bubbles. You don't need to, no, don't mess with that. Leave it where it's at, because you're going to be pressing this and the bubbles are going to blow out here. Don't dismantle it. It's my daughter that was just behind the screen there. If the mag's not in. Well, thank you, Octo. Auto so you can. Eastern Authority very much. Is that what you're talking about with y'all possibly separating? I mean, y'all aren't actually going to do that, but I mean, Texas talked about succeeding for like, I don't know, since its inception. So I always leave a little bit of meat in the spine so that I can mess with that arch if I need to. She's back? Well, have her give you some batteries. The old batteries. Tried that once, didn't work super well. No, it didn't. A little more of my drink that's a Flash IV by Body Armor. That stuff right there has got a lot of potassium, sodium, stuff like that, the stuff that you need when you're starting to. There we go. There wasn't a ton of y'all, so it wasn't like we lost. No, it's not Wi-Fi's dead. It's still hot enough to Make my phone crash. So we put a better cooling method on there. But there was only like a small group of y'all anyway, so it's not like it's going to take much to get back up to that. Yeah, it's been 111 for about 10 minutes now. We'll get everybody on here. Duck already knows what's up. Okay, now it's time to switch to a bigger hammer to just flatten. Get some planishing going. When it comes to ADCRB2, y'all don't want to forge too thin. ADCRB2 has a heavy decarb that happens when you do your heat treat. So you need to be able to grind that away. You need to be able to grind that decarb away. So like if you're going to make an ADCRB2 chef, you need to forge it a little thicker and then grind it down thin after the heat treating process. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going through and messing with the, I'll mess with this. So I'm going through and I'm just messing with the profile. I wanted that little bit of a harpoon, a little bit of a drop on there. We got our bevels forged. We still got to clean it up. We still got to make sure that we're centered all the way down. But for right now, I'm happy with the profile. I just need to go through, finish cleaning up the bevels just a little bit more, and then we can start focusing on the overall profile, because we need to go through and put more of an arch to the spine. So I've got to go through, once we go through and planish that blade and get it pretty close, then we'll grab it by the blade, we'll planish the tang, get the tang where it needs to be profile wise, and then we'll take and we'll bend it and give ourselves a nice little arch to the spine. I'm really big on the flow of a knife. I am not a fan of straight backed hunting knives or camp knives. You'll see those a lot whenever people are getting into knife making. So like this right here is the only thing that you'll ever see where there's like a straight spine and there's still something that drops back here. Now of course this is a huge chef's knife. That is a large chef knife. You can cut brisket with that thing. That is a very large chef, but I do not like seeing straight lines like this unless it's got a purpose for it. And you'll see hunting knives or camp knives that are super straight spined. So let's show, like this right here is a chopper. Okay. Even this has a subtle arch to it. So whenever I see them and they are straight from tip to the end of the tang and they are straight, I just look at it and I go, okay, well somebody took a bar of steel, okay? So someone took a bar of steel put that profile just like this right here. So tip to the end of the tang, put that profile on there, and they just drew this side of it. And then they left the whole entire spine, whatever the bar flatness was. So, I don't like that. I like for my knives to have some sort of flow to them. And the whole point behind that is whenever you're holding it, everything lends itself to chopping. You know, even machetes sometimes have that slight drop to them, or like a kukri and different things like that. They've got that little drop to it, so you can really chop with it, or you can use your tip. Whenever the spine's completely straight and the handle's completely straight, in order to get to that tip, you got to be using it like this instead of like this, where you have it at a slight angle and you can use that tip. You got to go like this to cut with that. Not a fan of that. I'm not saying that that's the wrong way to do it. I'm just saying I don't do it like that. Planish those bevels. Planish that spine just a little bit. Take a lot of those big crazy dents out of it. Make sure we're straight for the most part. Okay. That's looking good. Of course, we need to go through and fully straighten it, but all in all, no big hammer strikes in there. So now we're going to grab it from the blade side, and we need to work on the handle profile a little bit, because that is not big enough for my hand. Maybe for like my youngest child, his hand might fit that. That'd be great, but I need to work on that profile. Just a smidge. Yeah, no, I didn't actually have a straight line anywhere. I get that. Next week, give me some ideas for things to do. You kind of live one of those lives where I would say go ride your mule and do things. If it was my birthday and I was that young, I would have went. What are you turning? What age are you turning? By the way, this is one of those things I was talking about. Flash IV, rapid hydration. You don't want to drink the heck out of these, but whenever you're doing stuff like that, these are good. Lots of potassium and cool things that you need. Electrolytes, potassium, sodium, chloride, all those things. Zinc. So, 23, I would say, and I'd go out, eat. Me personally, back whenever I was 23, I was into cars, still am, but I was in a car club. We would have went and hung out, did car things. So I need to come in here, forge inside this handle. Doing this is going to give me a little length. Come to the other anvil, take, and we'll go to the horn. Pull that back just a hair. We are almost there lengthwise. We need to go about another 1/4 of an inch, which I could get out of whenever I clean up the actual handle. So right now what I'm going to focus on is getting the palm swells. So the swells, the section that goes in between your fingers right here and this little cavity right here in your palm. So whenever you're thinking about how things should swell, fingers, this little section should pretty much split those, and then this should go up into your palm. So we'll use this one. So like right now, where this point is, see my front 2 fingers go right in front of it, back fingers go back here. This section goes up into my palm. So whenever I'm holding this, that section goes into that relief. That comes around, this section goes in between the fingers. So whenever you're holding this, it feels the hand. So that's not going anywhere, because it feels the little point that goes in here, goes like inside there, and it goes inside here, locks in place. Now lets you get a real good perch on the knife there, the handle. I need to get a little more length out of this, which I'm going to get by working on that taper, going away from the ricasso. Got that. You can see we have coal profiles going into there. I need to pinch this section down just a little bit on the back side here. That's going to give me a little bit more length. And then we'll be good to look down it. Then we'll be good to arch it and then look down it and make sure we get it from the ricasso to the tip centered, and from the ricasso to the butt of the handle centered. I want to go prospecting and gold bearing grounds underwater. Man, that sucks. Dude, prospecting would be really cool to do on your birthday. And I also don't know what all you have going on up there in the old Canada. Canada. Get on the horn here. Literally going to be getting almost all my length out of that little bird's beak on the back side of that. So I don't know, some of y'all people suggest what he should do for his birthday. I'm a grown ass man, so I don't really do anything. It's 112 now, so I don't really do much for my birthdays or anything like that. We really don't, I celebrate the kids' birthdays and do stuff like that, but all in all, for me, whenever I was your age, I was doing crazy car stuff, racing, going to car shows and drifting events and all that type of stuff, and throwing parties, having fun, doing all that. I didn't really do much other than that. I didn't get into smithing till I was in my 30s. So definitely was not doing this. I was building cars, doing all that. So I probably would have bought something for my car and been installing it on my birthday. Yeah. Okay. We are pretty much there on the length. So I just need to go through, clean up, fine tune just a few things, and then put that arch into it. And then we'll planish. So what projects do y'all have going on right now? You know what I'm working on? Forging knives. I am trying to wrap up. I wouldn't say wrap up, but I'm working on a couple of builds. I've got a build that I'm working on that is for mule power forge on there. I've got one that I'm working on for that. His handle material just came in. And then of course I've got the YouTube challenge build that I'm working on. It is a steel version of this profile that I came up with. There's going to be multiple layers. This is going to be steel that I'm going to bronze and do cool stuff with. But whew, that right there, punch stuff with that, skull breaker. That's going to be, I am making this out of steel right now. This is where we're at so far on that. It's going to be lightened up a lot whenever I get it finished up, but right now that thing is a heavy son of a gun. And this is what we're working on for the people that just chimed in. We're doing a full tang, brute to forge, hunter. And so it's a brute to forge. It's going to be pretty close to forge to finish, but with it being 80 CRB2, you are going to have some grinding on there. This is what an actual like forge to finish knife looks like. That is fully forged, no grinder or anything like that. It's all hammer and anvil. The whole shebang. Yeah. That's what you call forged to finish. Here. Good there. Get the spine on the anvil, back off over here. Get that spine cleaned up. This started off as a little piece of a rectangle steel. So everything that you see right here has all been forged. It started off as a cutoff of this piece right here. So it came down about an inch, came up, and it came back up about an inch. That little section is what this knife is. So everything you see right there started off as about this length of a piece of steel. So we were able to more than double the length through forging. Isn't that wild? A piece of steel about this size is what we got into this whole entire blade right here. It's one of those things that I think is really cool about forging. There's no way on earth that I could have stock removed a chunk of steel that small into a knife as large as what we have right now. We're about 2.5 times the length, and at the highest point we're about 5/8 of an inch taller than what we started off with. Can't really beat that. You got to be forging in order to be able to do that. And what I'm using is I have a homemade forge. It's just made out of fire bricks and a couple of burners off of Amazon. I've got my antique anvil. I got my new anvil from Texas Farrier Supply. And we're just getting after it, having fun. We've used 4 hammers this whole entire time. We're not using the power hammer to do this. We're not using any of those things. We're doing it all by hand. This cleaned up. Now we're doing distal tapers on this. That's one of the ways that we got the length that we did. Right now I'm just going through and flattening a little bit, making sure that everything's where it needs to be. And then I'm going to go through and put a little bit of an arch to the spine of this. Okay, that's looking centered. That's looking good. So we're going to heat it up, and I'm going to take this little heel, I'm going to drop that down to where it's almost in line with the heel down here. So we're going to have a nice arch to this. And then that'll give us a nice cool looking profile. Then we're going to go into the blade section, and we're going to switch to a different set of tongs so that I can lay it on the anvil and I can really focus on getting things centered and flat and really play with it. and make sure that everything's how it's supposed to be. Okay. Let me grab myself just a little water real quick. Are the comments still flowing or did they stop? Okay, well it stopped on my screen. Just in case y'all are wondering if y'all are talking and I'm not responding to you. My last comment that I saw was the prospecting comment on that. That was the, let's see here. There we go. I got it to pull back up. So if I just reset the comments, which I didn't know I could do, then we're good. Okay, well, y'all, whoa. Trying to French saber. Most of the K-bars. Yeah, well, there's going to be a ton of K-bars and trench knives. Whole bunch of them for that. You missed a lot. I can tell I missed a lot. Holy crap. I'm over here popping off, talking all these things. And I was like, there's no way they just stopped talking. So at least now I know I can reset the comments. That's always cool. You learn new things all the time. So got some of that arch, but I got to go through and clean up some of that. Back in the forge, pull out the other anvil. There's probably some spiders on this thing that are going to be tripping. I primarily use this anvil for flattening things. Or you would think that I would use that cheap anvil for teaching people on, but it has such a big flat face that it's really nice to keep it clean, so that whenever I'm going through, let's say I have a wart and a chef knife or something like that, I'm using my carbide hammer. I use this anvil, the Vivor, to do that. Because it can get make sure things are super flat. But what I need right now is that double horn. Now I can compress just in one little spot, and that'll kick just the back section of that handle down and give me the profile that I want. Stack. Talking about doing the leather stack on a handle. So from what who works great. So from what I've seen with people who've done them, stack that bad boy with epoxy, profile it, CA glue it, sand it, CA glue it, sand it, CA glue it, sand it, and then polish the hell out of it. But use the epoxy for the initial stack. Use a good epoxy, not some 5-minute epoxy. Talk about an anvil that has 0 ring. That is just crazy. Now what we need to do, grab it with these tongs. I'll show you what the profile actually looks like. There's the profile so far. I'm gonna like having, now I'm gonna clean up this section right here. Whenever I grind it, it'll have a nice swell that comes back towards here. That swell on the inside. Plenty of height on the blade. You can see where the bevels come up into this ricasso. There's 2 different shades of light here, from here to here. Now what I gotta do though is just make sure that it's straight. It's not far off at all right now, but that's what we're gonna use these tongs for. Heat it up, straighten it. I'm gonna go ahead and heat it up one more time on the handle side. Just do a planish round up into the ricasso and the flats. And then I'll grab it from the tang and I'll planish from the bevels up to the flats, and the flats back into the ricasso and tang. No problem though. Done. So whenever you go to grind a dagger, I'll tell you the cheat, the hack to this, okay? If you want to grind it, if you want to make sure everything is where it needs to be, here's the hack. Cut your dagger profile, okay? Get your dagger profile, and then take a plunge line jig, all right? Plunge line jig, if you have one that has the carbide on it, fantastic. If not, here's the trick. Take one of your files, okay? Take one of your files, grind off one of the sides that has the teeth, Okay? Grind that off. And then you're going to take I'm just going to grab a blade. You're going to take it, you're going to put your plunge line jig on, and then you are going to file. So draw your center line, your medial ridge. So you grind your profile, draw your medial ridge line down to the tip, from the ricasso through to the tip. Then you take your file, butt it up against your plunge line jig, make sure one side is ground smooth, and just file just a transition from the ricasso down into the blade, so your plunge line. File that in, just that section as wide as your file, and then take your grind, your 2x72, and grind it up to that area. So all you got to do is just get up to there close and just focus on that front area. Focus on that front area, and then once you get close to that ridge line, take your file again and file the rest of it. File it to where you get down to your plunge line or your ridge line, and blend everything in, and then go to one of your high grits and just clean it up. Clean it up, clean it up, clean it up, and you'll have an absolute perfect to do it. Not everybody's got to, but yes, to start it the same way, power dremel, but not everybody has a Fordham. Like whenever I'm working on something that has like an integral bolster or something like that, I have this really big round file. I go in and I file in by hand. So I mark it and I'll file in by hand and work that in. So my kukri that I had that had that turquoise handle with the exposed copper, the turquoise wood with the exposed copper liners, I did that plunge line with a file. That file actually right there. So I ground it a little bit, and then I took that file and I rounded it. I worked that plunge line in gradually with that file. Grab the auto body hammer. But you'll see a lot of the master smiths, how they do their plunge lines on their buoys. They hand file those. These are how master smiths do it, okay? But it makes your life a lot easier if you just file that in, and then all you gotta do is just blend in on your 2x72. Call it good. Me personally, I grind it in, but I still use a plunge line jig. If you have a bevel jig, shoot, man, it makes that whole job so much easier. If you have an actual bevel grinding jig. Okay, I've got my tang nice and clean. Now I just need to get our blade side where it needs to be, planished, cleaned up, and we're good. More concerned about the medial ridge. Yeah, like I said, just grind it, get it close, use your file. Yeah, so for me, all I do is I throw on my plunge line jig, I go up to the belt, I grind my first bevel, I grind my second bevel, I grind my third bevel, I grind my fourth bevel, and then I look at it and I go, okay, that looks good. But I'm lucky. I can do that, and it just works out. You know what I mean? I never really have an issue with that. but it is a cheat to be able to do it like that. Some people use a chainsaw file and get their plunge and set their medial ridge with that, and then they grind back to that. So they use a chainsaw file to create that plunge line on all 4 bevels, and then they just grind back to it. It gives them a reference point to stop at, all that stuff. There's so many things you could do. But for me, I just know where my medial ridge is going to be because I draw that center line, and I just grind up to about 1/8 of an inch shy of that because I know I'm going to go up in a belt progression or hand sanding. So I go 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch shy of that medial ridge line that I drew in, and I grind my bevel just like a normal bevel. Just grind it just like a normal bevel. It'll have that full sweep up just as if you're grinding a drop point, and then flip it to the other side, grind that whole entire thing, and that will meet and give you your medial ridge. Do it the other side, and the other side, call it good. You're basically grinding 4 drop point bevels. That's it. Don't overthink it. And that puppy is like already pretty much perfectly freaking straight. The rest of that will get to be perfect once I grind the tang where it needs to be. Okay, you see how my butt here goes up to the point here. That then matches the heel right there. Heel's up here. Heel disappears right behind it. Cutting edge all the way up to the front. Where it needs to be. See how straight that frickin' cutting edge is? Oh yeah. Thank you, Franchi. Got that nice profile going up from that heel up into that tang swell. Nice flare on that kind of that bird's beak hook around there. If you know, you know, right? The tab is crooked. If you know, you know. This is going to clean up into a really cool profile. So I'll take a little bit of work on the 2x72, clean up just a couple of little things, and make it absolutely perfect. But all in all, everything's centered. That all looks good. It's still thick enough so that whenever I grind it or heat treat it, I'll be able to grind through any decarb layer. It's got a nice taper. Now, if this was like 26C3, I would have forged the edge thickness more than this. This is about 1/8 of an inch. I'd have gone down to a 1/16. Oh man, I need to quench some taters too. I really like that profile. It's a nice profile. So that's going to go back in the forge, heat back up, and then it's going to go through an annealing phase. And it'll be ready to mess with later tonight. You said your Spidey. I love that. Spidey tensors are tingling. For me, the cool thing about 80 CRV2 is if I need to go in and correct some little things tomorrow, or heck, even later today, after it cools down from this annealing phase, you can forge ADCRB2 cold. So I can go through and fine tune it as much as I want, make it all perfect, make sure everything's exactly where it needs to be, all with cold forging. Call it good. That's one of the best parts about ADCRB2. There are people that have fully cold forged ADCRB2 blades. All right. I'm gonna turn this off, block it off. Whenever you are annealing steel, you need to make sure that whenever you start getting that kohler into the steel, that you shut the forge off, block it off, let the internal temperature of that forge bring that steel up the rest of the way to about 1600, let it cool. Don't wait for it to get where that steel is a glowing red or orange, because it'll keep heating past that. If your forge was running at 1900 degrees and you block it off, it'll bring that steel all the way up to 1900 degrees and then cool it down. Yeah, no steel moving, just planishing and adjusting. Yeah, could you imagine that ADCRB2 cold forged, welded? But yeah, now I wouldn't do ADCRB2 and 15 and 20 cold forged, because 15 and 20 doesn't really like to be cold forged. It's not super bad on it, to be honest. 15 and 20 is very forgiving steel, very, very, very forgiving steel. 26C3, not forgiving, like at all. When it comes to that, you will develop cracks if you cold forge it. But you can, I forget his name, but he did a few of them. He's on Instagram. He does really cool blades and like leather notebooks and all kinds of stuff. I can't remember. I'll share it to you, Franchi. But he did a run of cold forged EDCs, little 3-finger EDCs, and they turned out pretty cool. Icarus. That's what it is. Icarus Forge on Instagram. Check him out. Probably one of my favorite knife makers right now. Absolute. I wouldn't call him an underrated person, because in the knife making community, a lot of us know who he is, but just out in the world, that dude is so underrated. Just his artwork, he could sell his artwork by itself if he wanted to. So like, whenever he's gonna make a knife, he does not just the artwork for the knife, but the lore behind the artwork. So like, it's got a full story. He writes a whole story about the blade that he's making and draws all the pictures from all the different angles, and then whenever he's done making the blade, it looks like the drawing. It's not like he's referencing the drawing to kind of get close to it. It's like, no, he made the thing that he drew. It's just unreal. He's such a good artist in every sense of the term. It is unreal. I wouldn't be surprised if he could play the piano or something like that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, probably call it here. Thank y'all for being a part of this. We're down to like a whole whopping 16 people. All you 16 people are here. Y'all the ones that matter. Y'all are here. Y'all are hanging out with me. We have the kids going back to school this week, so if I do live stream next weekend, we'll probably be doing stake flippers, rocking them out with the power hammer and things like that. I'll get the steel all cut down. I need to make some stake flippers for the farmer's market. What's up, Plunder Shop? I gotta make some steak flippers for the farmer's market in different sizes. Got to do rebar, square stock, all of that. So yeah, got to get those done. We'll do some of those during the live stream. I got to forge some of them during the week. I need to build up to about 30 of them. I think I have 5 right now, so I need to make another 25. And I'll probably sell out of all 25, no joke, whenever I have them at that show. So that'll be pretty cool. Steak flippers are probably one of the easiest things to sell. They almost sell themselves. So if you haven't really done anything like that, I mean, I'd like to sell them. Yeah, being a good salesman does help. But in my area, no one does what I do. Like, there's a few makers that are in my area. It's 112 in here. So we peaked at 113. That must have been just a minute ago, 113. Almost looks like because of the not mirroring thing or not flipping it, to me it looks like it's 115, but it's 112. 113 is what we peaked at during this. It's a hot son of a gun. That you make. That's my problem. So I don't have any issue selling steak flippers. I sold all my steak flippers at Blade Show in like the first blink of an eye. Like, the show opened, steak flippers were gone. My wands and pointers that I forged, those were gone. Like, all the little blacksmithing things, those were sold like that. Whenever I did a little car show where I actually smithed at a car show. Okay, this is my brother. He has a car club. They do car shows, stuff like that. They were hosting a car show. They wanted somebody to attract people, and it was the same weekend as the farmers market that was happening about 2 blocks down the road. And so we got overflow from the farmers market. They came down. I was doing my demo at that car show. I'm smithing. I forged a couple of steak flippers during the car show, and I sold both those steak flippers there. Plus, I sold a couple of knives there too. I was like, what the hell? I was just expecting to go there and just be part of the show and not sell a dang thing. I walked home, or I left there and went home with money in my pocket. It was awesome. And I didn't try and sell those dang things. I was planning on keeping them and possibly putting them on the website or something like that. Nope. They were just gone. Had to have Nisha come up, bring me my beeswax and a file to sharpen the dang things and all kinds of, like, I was not expecting to sell them. They sold like that. But yeah, I'm going to go inside, get some more hydration going on right now. I'll catch y'all next week. I'll let y'all know what time I'm going to be going live, and we'll go from there. Guys, thank y'all for being a part of this. As always, love y'all. Y'all are awesome. I did get a sale of the live stream, so that was cool. That is absolutely awesome. Guys, I'll catch y'all next week. We'll go from there. Let's do this. I'm going to go inside where it's not hot. Bye, y'all.